Did you know that what you eat tonight could be either working for you or quietly working against you? The choice is literally on your dinner plate right now. Most people think cancer is something that just happens to them, bad luck, bad genes, or just getting older. But here's what research keeps showing us. Your daily choices about what goes into your body might be one of the most powerful tools you actually have. And you don't need expensive treatments or supplements to start using it. Think about your typical Tuesday afternoon. You're a little tired, so you grab something convenient, maybe a pastry with your coffee, or you order something quick for lunch. You're not thinking about cancer. You're just thinking about getting through the day. That's real life. And that's the life we're going to talk about today, because this isn't about perfection. It's about understanding what's actually happening in your body when you make these daily choices. Hello, I'm Dr. Claire Carter. I've spent the last 10 years helping people understand how their bodies work and how small changes can create really significant shifts in their health. I'm not here to scare you or tell you that you're doing everything wrong. What I am here to do is give you honest, clear information about how certain foods can actually feed cancer cells, if they exist in your body, and more importantly, what you can do about it. This is practical, everyday information that you can actually use starting today. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through some specific foods that research has connected to feeding cancer cells. I'm going to explain why they do this in simple, everyday language, no complicated medical terms. And I'm going to show you what this actually means for your life, not in scary terms, but in practical, empowering terms. By the end of this video, you're going to understand which foods send signals to your body that either invite cancer cell growth or actually discourage it. You'll know what to look for when you're shopping. And most importantly, you'll feel like you have real control over one of the biggest health factors that's actually in your hands. That's powerful stuff. Let me start with something really important. Your body is constantly in a conversation with the food you eat. Every single food sends chemical messages to your cells. Some of those messages are saying, grow strong, repair yourself, stay healthy. Other messages are saying, inflammation, stress, make more of yourselves fast. When we talk about foods that feed cancer cells, we're really talking about foods that send those problematic messages. Now, here's something crucial to understand. Most of us don't develop cancer from one meal or even one type of food. It's about patterns. It's about what happens when these inflammatory, growth-promoting messages are coming in day after day, year after year. Your body can handle occasional stress signals, but when those signals become constant, that's when your cells start operating differently. Cancer cells are different from healthy cells in one really important way. They love environments where there's a lot of inflammation, a lot of sugar floating around, and a lot of growth-promoting signals. Think of it like this. Healthy cells are like a stable neighborhood where everything runs smoothly. Cancer cells are like weeds that thrive when there's chaos, damage, and constant fertilizing. The foods we're going to talk about are like fertilizer for those weeds. They create conditions where cancer cells, if they exist, can flourish. Here's the good news, and this is really important. Understanding this means you now have a way to change the environment in your body. You can stop sending those problematic messages, and when you stop, your body actually starts healing. This is something you control. Let's talk about the first category, ultra-processed foods and foods high in refined sugars. These are everywhere, and honestly, they taste good, which is why they're so appealing. When you eat something high in refined sugar, a pastry, a soft drink, white bread, many breakfast cereals, your blood sugar spikes very quickly. Your body releases insulin to manage that spike. Now, insulin itself isn't bad, but here's the problem. Cancer cells actually have way more insulin receptors than healthy cells do. That means when you're sending out those insulin signals constantly, you're basically opening doors for cancer cells. You're saying, come in, grow, multiply. Researchers have found that people with consistently high blood sugar and high insulin levels have higher cancer rates across multiple cancer types. But it gets more specific than that. When you eat refined, processed foods, you're also typically getting a lot of seed oils, vegetable oils that are pro-inflammatory. These oils create inflammation in your body. Inflammation is literally one of the main conditions where cancer cells like to grow. It's like setting up the perfect welcome mat. Processed foods also usually contain fewer of what I call protective compounds, things like antioxidants, fiber, and phytonutrients. These compounds are like your body's security team. They patrol your cells looking for damage and problems. When you eat mostly processed foods, you're basically removing that security team from your building. Your cells are left more vulnerable. The foods in this category include many commercial baked goods, sugary drinks, breakfast cereals with added sugars, white bread and white pasta, most packaged snacks, fast food meals, and foods with high fructose corn syrup. Think about what you ate yesterday. Were there items from this category? Don't judge yourself, just notice. This awareness is actually the first step toward change. Now let's talk about something that might surprise you: processed meats. This includes things like bacon, sausage, hot dogs, deli meats, pepperoni, and canned meats. These are specifically linked to cancer risk, particularly colon cancer and stomach cancer. Here's why. Processed meats contain compounds called nitrates and nitrites that are used to cure and preserve them. When these compounds enter your digestive system, they can convert into carcinogenic substances called nitrosamines. But that's not the only problem. Processed meats are also typically high in salt, which can damage the lining of your stomach. They're often high in saturated fat, which creates inflammation, and they usually lack the protective compounds that come with whole foods. When you think about processed meat, think of the transformation that's happened to it. A piece of fresh chicken or fish is relatively close to what came off the farm. But a hot dog? That's been ground, mixed with preservatives, cured, smoked, sometimes had color added. Your body doesn't really recognize it as food in the natural sense. It recognizes it as something to be cautious about. The connection between processed meat and cancer is strong enough that major health organizations specifically recommend limiting these foods. This isn't debatable science. It's pretty well established. How often would you say you eat these processed meats? A few times a week? Once a day? Once a week? Just getting honest with yourself about this is important. Here's something many people don't know about. The way you cook food matters. When you cook meat at very high temperatures, grilling, frying, charring, something specific happens. Compounds called heterocyclic amines, or HCAs, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs, form on the surface of the meat. These are known to be mutagenic, meaning they can damage cells in ways that lead toward cancer. Now, I'm not saying you can never have a grilled burger, but if you're grilling meat multiple times a week, charring it dark brown or black on the outside, you're creating regular exposure to these compounds. Your liver and your detoxification system have to work harder to process them. Over time, that accumulates. The meats most affected by this are red meat and processed meat, but it can happen with chicken too, especially if it's cooked at very high heat. Fish is less problematic because the compounds form differently in fish meat. What reduces the formation of these compounds? Lower cooking temperatures, shorter cooking times, and marinating meat before cooking, especially in spices and herbs that are antioxidant rich. Also, adding vegetables to the meal helps because the protective compounds in vegetables actually counteract these damaging compounds. The beautiful thing here is that you don't have to give up cooking or grilling. You just need to be smarter about how you do it. Small changes in cooking method can make a real difference. Before we go further, I'd love to know, what surprised you most so far? What food or habit made you think, "Oh, I didn't know that"? Drop it in the comments. Let's build a conversation about this together, because when we talk about our challenges, we're more likely to actually change them. Let me talk about something that's in almost every packaged food: seed oils. These include soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil, and cottonseed oil. Now, these aren't poisonous, but they have a problem. They're extraordinarily high in omega-6 polyunsaturated fats. Your body actually needs omega-6 fats, but it also needs balance with omega-3 fats. Most of our ancestors were eating roughly a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Today, the average American is eating something closer to 20-to-1 in favor of omega-6. This imbalance creates inflammation throughout your body. And remember, inflammation is one of cancer's favorite environments. These oils are in most salad dressings, most baked goods, most fried foods, and many spreads. When you're eating these foods regularly, you're constantly tipping your inflammatory balance in the wrong direction. The oils that don't have this problem are olive oil, especially extra virgin, avocado oil, and coconut oil, though coconut oil is high in saturated fat, which has other considerations. But for the purposes of reducing inflammation and cancer risk, these are significantly better choices. I want you to think about what you use for cooking at home. And what about things you don't cook? The dressings, the sauces, the prepared foods you buy. That's where these oils are hiding. I want to address alcohol because many people have a complicated relationship with this topic. Alcohol itself, when consumed at higher levels regularly, is connected to increased cancer risk, particularly breast cancer, liver cancer, and colorectal cancer. Here's what happens. Alcohol is metabolized into acetaldehyde, which is toxic to cells. Your body has to work hard to detoxify it. Over time, repeated exposure to this toxin creates inflammation and can damage the cells lining your organs. Also, alcohol can actually increase estrogen levels in women, which feeds certain types of cancer cells. But I want to be really clear here. I'm not saying one glass of wine is dangerous. What research is concerned about is regular, higher-level consumption. We're talking about more than 1 drink daily for women or 2 drinks daily for men. That's where the cancer risk really increases. The reason I mention this is because it's a pattern. It's another food-related choice that, combined with other choices, either builds health or builds risk. Where do you stand with alcohol? Is this something you think about, or is it just part of your routine? I want to touch on something that surprises people. Not all dairy is equal when it comes to cancer risk. The issue isn't really milk itself. The issue is high heat pasteurization and the removal of fat. When milk is ultra-pasteurized at very high temperatures, it denatures some of the proteins and destroys some of the beneficial compounds. And here's something interesting. When you remove the fat from milk and make it low-fat or skim, you're actually changing its effect in your body. Full-fat dairy contains compounds like butyrate and conjugated linoleic acid that have anti-cancer properties. When you remove the fat, you remove those protective factors, and you're left with mostly sugar, lactose, and protein. This is particularly relevant for breast cancer, where some studies have suggested that high consumption of low-fat dairy might actually increase risk, while full-fat dairy shows a protective effect. Now, this doesn't mean you need to drink lots of dairy, but if you do consume dairy, full-fat versions from grass-fed cows are significantly better choices than low-fat, ultra-processed dairy products. Notice something here. We're not talking about never eating anything good. We're talking about choosing better versions of things. Better versions of the foods you probably already like and eat. Let me address something that confuses a lot of people: artificial sweeteners. Many people switch to diet sodas or foods with artificial sweeteners, thinking they're making a healthy choice. But research is increasingly showing that artificial sweeteners, especially aspartame, saccharin, and sucralose, might actually be connected to cancer risk, and they're definitely connected to disrupting your gut microbiome. Your gut bacteria, your microbiome, is like an internal security system. When it's healthy and balanced, it helps regulate inflammation, supports your immune system, and produces protective compounds. Artificial sweeteners damage this ecosystem. They kill off beneficial bacteria and allow harmful bacteria to flourish. When your microbiome is damaged, your inflammation goes up, your immune system becomes less effective, and you're more vulnerable to cancer cell development. Beyond artificial sweeteners, there are hundreds of food additives in processed foods: colorings, flavorings, preservatives, emulsifiers. Many of these haven't been rigorously tested for their long-term effects, especially when combined together. Each one alone might be considered safe, but you're consuming dozens of them daily if you eat processed foods regularly. The safest approach is simple. Eat foods that don't need a list of ingredients. Food that spoils is food that's real. This is a big one. How many ingredients do you think are in your typical meal? If you had to guess, would it be close to the number of actual foods? Or would it be a lot more? I want to zoom out for a moment and talk about the cumulative effect. Sugar-sweetened beverages, sodas, sweetened teas, energy drinks, many juices, aren't just high in sugar. They're a delivery system. They get that sugar into your bloodstream extremely quickly, creating massive insulin spikes. A single 20-ounce soda has about 65 grams of sugar. Let's put that in perspective. That's more sugar than most nutritionists recommend you eat in an entire day. And you can drink it in minutes. Your body dumps insulin into your bloodstream. Your cells get flooded with growth-promoting signals. If cancer cells are present, you're feeding them. And if they're not present yet, you're creating the environment where they're more likely to develop. But here's what's really important. These foods don't work alone. They work together. Someone who drinks one soda daily, eats processed meats a few times a week, cooks everything at high heat, and uses processed vegetable oils for cooking, that person is creating a perfect environment for cancer. But someone who maybe has one soda a month, eats processed meats rarely, cooks at moderate temperatures, and uses olive oil most of the time, that person is creating a protective environment, even if they're not perfect. This is about patterns and momentum. Which direction are you going? And here's where the real empowerment comes in. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be better than you were. You just have to trend in the right direction. Every single choice you make either adds to your risk or subtracts from it. But you're the one making the choices. I want to be clear about something. Nothing I've shared today is medical advice. This is educational information based on current research. Everyone's situation is unique. If you have concerns about cancer risk, or if you've been diagnosed with cancer, these conversations need to happen with your doctor, who knows your complete medical history and your specific situation. What I'm giving you is general information to empower you. Your doctor is your partner in making decisions that are right for your health. You know, after 10 years of talking with people about their health, I've learned something. Most people want to do the right thing. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for direction. They're looking for clarity about what actually matters. And I hope that's what this has given you today. Clarity. Not fear, not judgment. Just clarity about how your choices matter and how much power you actually have over your health. Remember, the fact that you're watching this, that you're thinking about these things, that you're trying to understand how to take care of yourself, that already puts you ahead. That already means you're moving in the right direction. Thank you for spending this time with your health. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.